better?
Well, China, as they say in the English, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, right? The China suffered the first major outbreak in the world, which meant that China had least information about how to deal with the situation. It's also by far the most successful country in dealing with a major outbreak. Now, some countries have been very successful because they pursued what you might call a lockout strategy. That's New Zealand, Vietnam. They were just able to prevent the virus entering the country. This is excellent. I'm all in favour of them doing this, and good for them that they succeeded in doing it. But this is not possible for major countries, of course, in which the main mechanism of transmission is not international, but the main mechanism of transmission is domestic. The situation there on China is very clear. It took China either 8 weeks or 10 weeks, depending on how you want to measure it, basically to get the virus under control. And I mean this rather precisely. The key step in fighting the virus was the lockdown in Wuhan and Hubei on the 23rd of January. The number of cases then continued to rise for a further 12 days and peaked on the 4th of February. It then took a further 8 weeks for the number of cases to become zero. That was the first day. That wasn't stable at zero, but it meant that that was the first day in which there were 0 cases. Then it went up and down for a little bit, but it's basically been kept close to zero since then. This means basically it took 8 weeks or 10 weeks, exactly that, depending on exactly how you want to measure it, for China to get the situation under control. But this is totally different. The number of deaths and the number of cases in Western Europe and in the United States is going down so slowly that it's not clear ever whether this virus is going to disappear or not. I mean, the situation is really scary because in China, basically, the situation is not, because I work in a Chinese institution, I've got friends in China. I had friends in Wuhan, so I know what was the situation in Wuhan, right? The situation is not normal, but the situation is returning to normal. This is not the case at all in Western Europe or the United States. There's no normality, which is a return in here. And this, of course, casts a great light on such questions as, human rights. In China, I mean, the most important human right in the world is to stay alive. And in China, that was what was safeguarded. I know that the Western media admits that the prestige of the Chinese government and the prestige of the Chinese Communist Party at the present time is very, very high. This is within China. This is written not by people who are friendly to China. This is written by people who are hostile to China. They regard it as bad. They would like the prestige of the government to be low. But unfortunately, they have to admit that it's not. For example, the chief Asia correspondent of the Financial Times who's totally hostile to China, wrote saying that the Chinese government is regarded by the population as having got the virus under control, and the Chinese population thinks that the situation in the United States and Europe is a disaster, which is entirely accurate. And therefore, the prestige of the Chinese government is very high. He thought this was bad. He would like the prestige of the government of China to be very low. But he had to admit that it was, on the contrary, it was very high. And this is the real development situation. China has shown it can protect the population on the most fundamental issues, and the Western governments are completely failing to do so. So this is a real test of the efficiency of the Chinese government, the Chinese system, compared to the Western system. And it's like there was a good article by one at the beginning of the outbreak. One of the British people who was in Wuhan was evacuated to Britain, and he gave an interview in the British media saying that it was a big mistake. He should have stayed in Wuhan. It was much safer to be in China than it was to be in Britain. I'm just taking this as one newspaper story, but it's a general truth. It's much, much more dangerous to be in Britain or to be in the United States than it is to be in China. And, most people in the world want to be alive. So this has shown the much greater efficiency of China's system compared to the Western one.